All right, this is the Reading Room. I'm Jeff Cook. We're looking at the end of Chapter 2 of Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart. We started with comparison last time. She does a stellar job dividing that emotion, or that experience, I should say, of comparison into emotions that splinter out of it. These are oftentimes, and this was surprising to me, oftentimes really positive in nature. Comparison isn't necessarily a negative. Sometimes there's a positive to it. And so that's what we're going to be talk about tonight. I am releasing this episode a little late. You will notice this. I normally get these up on the weekend. Today is Tuesday. I got kidnapped for Father's Day and my birthday, which was yesterday. I turned 50 and I'm out of my office today. For those of you who are watching on video, you'll see I'm at my building. So this is our co-working space. And you will see to my right these fantastic windows, which you will be reminded of because they were in your elementary school. This same company supplied all the elementary school windows for every elementary school built between 1946 and 1963. I'm making all of this up, by the way, but they remind me of my elementary school windows. And the reason being is the space I'm in right now used to be an elementary school classroom. So funny to me. Funny. All right, so we're starting with admiration and reverence. This is on page 24. Love this as a starting point for us. Admiration and comparison are comparative in nature. And she writes, this will be the first quote for me. We feel admiration when someone's abilities, accomplishments, or character inspires us, or when we see something else that inspires us, like art or nature. Interestingly, admiration often leads us to wanting to improve ourselves. It doesn't, however, make us want to be like the person or thing we admire. We just want to be better versions of ourselves. That's a super healthy way to think about that. But I suppose we're going to talk about envy and jealousy here in a minute. Maybe the negative side of that would be wanting to be that person, not just improve ourselves. But again, we've talked about how she is very likely an Enneagram 1, or types as an Enneagram 1. And that's what I hear over this language. Better versions of ourselves and improving ourselves. That's a common posture for ones like myself. And it's something that I'm all for, I'm all into. We talked a little bit about this last Tuesday, that comparison has power to propel us, to move us, to get us going oftentimes in a beneficial direction. That's not always the case, but it certainly can. So like, why do you want to grow? Why do you want to do the work? Why do you want to get into Enneagram? Like improving yourself, your relationships, that might come from seeing another person who's healthy and saying, I just want to be healthier. It's not always, change isn't always inspired by pain. Sometimes it might be inspired by really great examples. Some of you will know that TJ and I are doing a series called Heroes, going through movies and films that showcase heroes. And part of that for my own heart is I just want some symbols to connect with my soul. I want some examples of people who are doing things well in the midst of trials and hardship, and admiration, even reverence here. That may be part of that. So she spends just a little bit of time on admiration, but most of her time on reverence. She defines reverence at the end of 24. Reverence, which is sometimes called adoration, worship, or veneration, is a deeper form of admiration or respect, and is often combined with a sense of meaningful connections with something greater than ourselves. I think this is correct. She spends it primarily in the religious, mystical sense in spaces, but I think we can have reverence, and it might be unhealthy reverence, for athletes, for actors, for politicians. And she rightly says that admiration and reverence, especially reverence leads to a desire to connect. So we revere God, and that reverence produces in us a feeling where I want to connect with the divine. I think this is true. It's also the case, I think we're saying that like you can have reverence for an athlete, and like getting an autograph or, meeting them in person, that might be a part, that's connection. You might have a desire for connection in that way. Actors, politicians. I get involved with a political campaign for a presidential run because, man, I revere so-and-so who's running for high office and working in tandem with them, I feel connected. It's not just about the outcome. It's like just feeling like you're part of something. I feel like there's something there. She contrasts this with irreverence, and I think this is helpful. Irreverence often comes across as like crass comedy, high school jokes, and the rest. I think irreverence can be incredibly valuable, especially to unhealthy reverence. So if you have an unhealthy posture towards a particular politician, irreverent humor, which would showcase the failures, flaws, things worth mocking in those being revered, can be a safeguard. It can be a prophetic word. This is what the prophets really are. Prophets don't tell about the future. Prophets look at their own culture and showcase this is where things are flawed and our emotions are out of joint with reality. Irreverence can do that. So like, The Daily Show is a prime example of this, of just you poke fun at those elements of the powerful in our culture to keep them in check, to keep them humble, to keep them, don't get too big for your britches. You're the most powerful person who's ever lived, given your nuclear arsenal. Let's pause for a second and, sit down, be humble. 4, she moves from admiration and reverence into envy and jealousy. I was very grateful for the small amount she says on envy, because of all of the lists here of feelings, envy is one that pops for me hard. So I didn't want too much literature spilled on my behalf, on my shadow. We could move forward. Difference between envy and jealousy. Real interesting distinction here. She says there's several debates about the inner workings of envy and jealousy, but there seemed to be a consensus that these are two significantly different emotions. Starting with these definitions. Envy occurs when we want something another person has. Notice it's about possession. Notice it's about two people. Someone else is enjoying something that we want. Jealousy is when we fear losing a relationship or a valued part of a relationship that we already have. She makes it relational, but with jealousy, you are already enjoying something and feel threatened by someone outside. Because it's relational, jealousy here is I have a relationship and a third person is kind of weaseling their way in. I think we can be jealous of other weaseling forces. Like my lover is pulled away by their work. I'm jealous of the company they work for. I'm jealous of the book that they're reading all the time and they don't spend good time with me. I'm jealous of the football game they're watching. That I think that would work also. So I think it might not necessarily need to be relational exclusively, but I do like these ideas that someone else is enjoying the thing, I'm enjoying the thing. That's the distinction between envy and jealousy. When highlighting envy, she says we normally are envious of one of three things, which she lists as attraction, competence, and wealth. I love triads. You guys will know this. I was trying to slam these into the Enneagram. I'm going to try my best here. Wealth, in order to get there, isn't about resources like the head triad would seek. It's going to be about power. Wealth would need to be about the ability to dominate in such a way that you establish the lifestyle you want. That could work for body. Competence, you'll see why I'm doing the head types with competence. And then attraction, your ability to bond. That could be a triad. Otherwise, the body types, we're free of envy, clearly, because competence and wealth feel more like they'd align with. Well, these probably transcend. I'm sure these transcend, but I'm trying to jam them into triads. She pairs envy with hostility and no hostility. And I found this really interesting, worth talking about and pausing on. You can want to have a lover and you can generally be envious of other people who have a lover. They have found their person, and I'm envious that they have found their person. Why have I not found my person? That's one way. But it's no hostility. God bless them. They look great. Those two kissing in the fountain over there look amazing. And there's another way that envy works. It's, dear God, I grew up with that girl. We went to high school together. He's a schmuck. And they're kissing in the fountain. I want him to not have her sort of posture. The envy is like pushing with some hostility into that space. That's what I heard here. That obviously, attention can be singular. Does the person that I love, do they give me their singular attention in the way that I desire? Or is it just a case like, am I just looking for attention? As a mammal, I want to bond, want to connect, want to have sexual experiences with somebody I'm attracted to. That seems to me good, healthy, reasonable, worthy. And there's lots of human beings that can fulfill that very natural desire. I think this is interesting in terms of like how targets work. Resources can be this way as well. Like I might really want the piece of property next to my house for a specific purpose. And so I'm envious that somebody else owns it, and I'm hostile towards them because they don't build anything on it, or they keep it looking trashy, or they did something with the piece of property that I would have liked to have done for my own sake and services. But of course, there's lots of pieces of property you could buy. Or, maybe there's a singular car, the original Back to the Future DeLorean, and you just so happen to be the biggest Michael J. Fox fan there is in the world, and you want that DeLorean, and you have the wealth, and yet somebody else owns that car and will never sell it, and so you're envious. That's a thing. Or you could look and you say, holy crap, Sally bought a new Toyota. I want a new Toyota. There are apparently lots of new Toyotas out there, but you don't have any hostility with Sally owning a Toyota, but you want a Toyota as well. So resources, attention, how hostility works with those, I think is real interesting. Power can work this way. And this was brought forth like power, wealth, I suppose on the body type side, I was trying to make this stretch. Or even like your physical strength. Like somebody can hold a government position that is singular, and so you're envious of that position. But there might be lots of powerful positions that you might be really well wired for. And just because you didn't get this job, you go get this other job. Somebody else can be exceedingly healthy and have really committed to fitness, and you're envious, quote unquote, you're envious of like what they've done with their body. But of course you can, in theory, if able-bodied, well, actually that would be a thing, wouldn't it? Perhaps it's the case that you have physical limitations to having a body of a certain sort. I have physical limitations. As was said earlier, I'm turning 50. I can't do a lot of the 20-year-old things anymore. And so I might be envious. What would it be if that really wouldn't jive with hostility? Hostility would be something more like somebody possesses something that you can't possess. Anyway, or maybe it's the case that you just walk around with your two middle fingers up to the 25-year-olds, and they're just so attractive, or something. I don't know where I'm going there. I'm in a room talking to myself. That's what's going on here. But that made me laugh. That's what she says about envy. And perhaps it has that overlap with heart, mind, and body. Fifth quote for me is on jealousy. Jealousy doesn't seem to be, this is the top of 28. Jealousy doesn't seem to be a singular emotion, but rather a cognitive evaluation in response to feeling anger, sadness, and or fear. You will notice the triad: anger, sadness, and fear, underlying feelings in the Enneagram. In other words, we think jealousy in response to how we feel. We think jealousy in response to how we feel. There is an evaluation that produces anger, sadness, and fear. Those are the feelings. Jealousy is something in our head. That's interesting. The well-worth kind of part of this might be a really helpful document to create is like, what are the experiences that are cognitive? What are the experiences that are feeling oriented and emotional? According to researchers Mingi Chung and Christine Harris, jealousy typically involves a triad: two people in a relationship and a rival. The rival is usually another person, but occasionally it is something else, such as loss of valuable relationship time to a favorite activity. They write, the core form of jealousy primarily involves threats to relationship rewards, including loss of a loved one's attention, affection, or resources to another. I guess she did clarify that. So you might lose a relationship to the Denver Broncos. It happens. Those dumb Broncos, they're so great. The jealousy. The turn for her, which is interesting, is she wants to elevate. Jealousy isn't always a negative. And she quotes Maya Angelou on this, of all people, who writes, jealousy in romance is like salt in food. A little can enhance the savor, but too much can spoil the pleasure, and under certain circumstances can be life-threatening. I think this is helpful. Like, sometimes jealousy can spur a movement towards deeper bonding, and even for those of us who have a difficult time really serving, pursuing, and elevating a romantic partner, jealousy can remind us of the great good that we have in front of us. And I think that's helpful. Jealousy as an enhancer. Quote number 7 on page 29. Even after learning about these distinctions, it still feels hard to use the word envious. Oh, we're coming back to envy. It was a bait and switch. We're back. Maybe it's because envy can have that hostility component. Also, I wonder if unconsciously we don't use the term because it's one of the 7 deadly sins. See Jeff Cook, 7, Zondervan, 2008, great book. And 2 of the 10 commandments are warnings against envy. It is in our upbringing and our culture to feel shame about feeling envy. So some of the stuff I wanted to say about envy is is the only deadly sin that doesn't give you any pleasure in return for the feeling. Wrath may give you a little pleasure. Lust might give you a little pleasure. What else? Gluttony is going to give you a lot of pleasure, hopefully. If you're greed, that can give you some. Envy just gives you nothing. Just gives you nothing. That's one reflection. The other thing is that it is so relational in nature, so vulnerable, so exposing to say I'm feeling envious, because it's kind of saying I feel a lack, I feel a pain, I feel a hurt because something isn't fulfilled, and that just doesn't make you feel strong, attractive, and perhaps competent at getting what you want. Notice the triad. There's something here that I'm glad she is saying. This is a hard term for us and for our culture that's probably worth diving into. Like, why is that the case, and what does it expose about us? Hey, we should learn from our feelings. What are our feelings seeking to communicate? But over all of this, the thing that keeps hitting me is just a question for us. Like, how do we wrestle with our possessions or lack of possessions and what they say about our self-worth? Why is it the case that the relationship I have tells me about myself, or the car that I possess tells me about myself, or for me, the job that I have, the accomplishments that I have executed? Why do they say so much about my self-worth? Envy, in my mind, really is in that space. Even jealousy is in that space. Is somebody able to take away those things? Anyway, quite helpful. Worth talking about on Tuesday. Quote number 8, understanding resentment. All right, we're here. Enneagram 1 that I am, I'm ready for this. She's going to bring the pain. Understanding resentment. how it works in my life, where it comes from, and how I stay out of it. Oh, she's got a how you stay out of it. This is good. Has been one of my lifelong struggles. This is not something that's easy for me to share with you because on top of struggling with resentment, I'm judgmental toward my own resentment. That's a good Enneagram 1 line. Let me explain. We know from the research that unwanted identity is the most powerful elicitor of shame. If you want to know what's likely to trigger shame for you, just fill in the sentence stem. It's really important for me not to be perceived as blank. It's really important for me not to be perceived as weak, as unattractive, as dumb, as smelly. What I hear in her setting up resentment at the front is just as a one, not being spoiled. But this is also about perception. It's not, I suppose it could be about her self-perception as well. It's really important for me not to be perceived by myself as spoiled and all the rest. But that's what I hear there. She continues, quote 9 at the bottom. She writes, she was talking to a podcast host. Before we start, I've got a personal question. Is resentment part of the anger family? Pausing there. That's what I would have assumed. Every time I'm asked, when I'm on other people's podcasts about resentment, I always tie it to the heart triad, though. And I feel like I've been wrong there. But notice, is resentment part of the anger family body? Without hesitation, Mark replied, no, resentment's part of envy. Oh, holy shit. I'm not mad because you're resting. I'm mad because I'm so bone tired and I want to rest. But unlike you, I'm going to pretend that I don't need to. I'm not furious that you're okay with something that's really good and imperfect. I'm furious because I want to be okay with something that's really good and imperfect. Your lack of work is not making me resentful. My lack of rest is making me resentful. I think this is true sometimes. I'm really curious about this quote. I do think that resentment's about relational comparison, as was said. I think this is very helpful. You are looking at yourself, you're looking at another person, you are judging. That's comparison. But it has the justice element, and that's why the ones struggle with it. Something's unjust. I mean, everybody might struggle with this. And so like if you have a sense of justice, you are doing the work and they are not, therefore you feel resentful. Her pivot and suggestions, I think, are real helpful. She's going to start saying, look, where are you drawing the line? Quote 10 for me. What do I need but am afraid to ask for is a way out of this. She says she was watching this movie in which there were 3 children of some parents. One of the children stuck around to help serve the parents in their elderly state. The other 2 went off to frolic and be successful in the world out there, leaving this particular person back to care for their parents. And the idea being, look, that's out of balance for sure. There's no justice, no fairness there. So what do you do with this? Like, it absolutely is the case. This person could go to their 2 siblings and ask for something. And apparently, what do I need but am afraid to ask for? That's her quote for, like, what's a road out of this? Asking your siblings, hey, I need your help. I need your finances as well. I need you to take up a third of the task so that the job gets done. That seems entirely practical, wise, thoughtful. This is a way out of resentment. What do you need to ask for? Sometimes we don't know what we want. This is a huge thing for me. Not knowing what I want, and I'm not able to articulate it to others, and this creates a lot of problems for me. It is the case, however, that sometimes you have dumb as shit siblings who run off and leave their parents and duties that they may have to their parents. And you have a choice at that point. Like, what do I do? These other folks are not, I've told them what I need. I'm not going to get help. And so the unfairness, the injustice remains. And I imagine the resentment's going to remain as well. I don't know that resentment is something you can just leave. Her last definition here at top of 33, resentment is the feeling of frustration, judgment, anger, better than, and or hidden envy related to perceived unfairness or injustice. It's an emotion that we often experience when we fail to set boundaries or ask for what we need, or when expectations let us down because they were based on things we can't control, like what other people think, what they feel, or how they're going to react. I think all of this is correct, and you still might be in a situation where you can't possibly escape resentment because the feelings of frustration, judgment, and anger are going to be there because other people suck sometimes. But naming, I am in that space of resentment. I'm in that space of resentment because this is the hand I'm dealt. I suppose I'm looking for an escape hatch here, and just naming for myself, there's probably not one to be found. But I do think some of this is correct, like failed boundaries. That's probably true, and that may really help you in some of your relationships on these fronts. So, last two emotions are schadenfreude and freudenfreude. These have to do with joy. The first, schadenfreude, is about the joy from the misfortune of others. This is a German word. Joy from the misfortune of others. She said there's not really an English equivalent. There's something that comes out of Greek, which is epikerisy, which is feeling joy upon evil. I think this is funny that this isn't rooted in English, but as she will say throughout this section, it's become real common. There is something about Americans presently, the competitiveness, not individually, but the competitiveness collectively, in which this group longs for the suffering and failure of this other group. That seems to me real common right now. Whole TV networks are dedicated to it, and specifically in politics. Groupthink, competition, this is where a lot of this comes out. So she writes, in the case of schadenfreude, it simply means pleasure or joy derived from someone else's suffering. You want somebody else to suffer? We're talking about. Quote 13 for me is on page 34. It's easy to build counterfeit connections with collective schadenfreude. Oh, this was good. I like this. It's easy to build counterfeit connections. So I bond with somebody who hates the same people I do. I say counterfeit because when we see someone who we don't like, we disagree with, or is outside our group stumble, fall, or fail, it's tempting to celebrate that suffering together and to stir up collective emotions. That kind of bonding might feel good for a moment, but nothing that celebrates the humiliation or pain of another person builds lasting connection. We can't go on being friends just because Charlie over there is suffering and we both hate Charlie. Nothing that celebrates the humiliation or pain of another person builds lasting connection. So funny. Okay, there's at some point we'll have to talk about Aristotle and Aristotle's three views of friendship. Like we build friendships, relationships based on something that connects us. Apparently, humiliation and pain don't lead to the lasting connection we desire. Funny. There's a famous quote, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And that's what popped for me here, which is that there's just a severe takedown of this philosophy in a Star Trek movie in which Spock says to somebody who just quotes this, he says, it's an Arabic proverb attributed to a prince who was betrayed and decapitated by his own subjects. And then Kirk, who's the one who said it, goes, well, it's still a hell of a quote. Makes me laugh. I mean, the temporary nature of this, I think, is valuable, and the fact that it's not lasting means it's not really part of the fabric of being a great person. That doesn't mean that it's not a good thing to want justice. She's going to later say on 35, when we're relieved or happy to see someone held accountable for wrongdoing, we're not automatically celebrating their suffering, but more often we're grateful for the healing that accountability brings to those who have been affected by the wrongdoing. We ought to celebrate justice. And justice is a primary good target that's worthy on its own merits, and the emotion that we experience when justice is done is a great good. It is the case, I think correctly so. It's not that you're longing for somebody to suffer. You're longing for justice to be done, and justice is about the world being set right. Righteousness. You're right. You're wanting everything to be as it should be, just as it should be. That's what justice is. And again, it's comparative on that front. Like you're comparing a previous situation where things were out of balance with things balancing and being balanced. And justice has that comparative element to it. And the celebration there is quite good. So again, kind of check your heart, I suppose, is what I'm hearing here. Quote 14 at the end of that section. Researchers Richard H. Smith and Wilco W. Van Dyke grabbed my attention with this line about schadenfreude. It's an emotion typically born out of inferiority rather than superiority. I would add that it doesn't always have to be about inferiority. Schadenfreude is also born out of fear, powerlessness, and or a sense of deservedness. The thing that hit me there when I read it was it's actually about powerlessness. And I suppose, or at least that's where it would hit me, like celebrating somebody else's failures, so somebody else's pain, somebody else suffering for the dumbheaded stuff that they've been doing to my family, to my culture, to our country, longing for them to experience hitting their face against the wall. It's because I'm powerless, is how I interpreted that. But fear, sense of deservedness, helpful as well. These are contrasted with a different kind of emotion. And I like this as a place to land. This would be freudenfreude, which would be joy at others' joy. Like you're longing for others and experiencing an experience of joy when other people succeed. One of the things I love most about my three wife is when she's actually secure, she goes into sixth space, but she's still celebratory, and she celebrates other people, specifically her students, at really high levels. She gets a vicarious sense of joy through the accomplishments of her students. They say something about her as a teacher and what she's accomplished, obviously, but she insists, she gives all of her students, she has like hundreds of students over the years, and it's presently like overseeing 100 history teachers, prospective history teachers, and she gives all of them her personal phone number. When you get a job, you need to call me immediately and celebrate with me over the phone. This is known, and this is demanded, and this is expected. When you get a job working as a history teacher, you're gonna call me and celebrate. And when big things happen, you're gonna call me and celebrate. That posture of being open to that, I find so valuable. There's a word that Brown uses here. It's bragitude, intentionally tying words of gratitude toward the listener following discussions of personal success. One of the things that I have loved in some of my relationships recently, especially with threes, and it's of all things, it's been bleeding out from how I experience Kelly to how I experience other threes and even further, is saying I want permission to just boast about something amazing that happened. And that's been so good for my heart and soul. And when it's felt reciprocated, and she goes into this, like when the other receives that, gets excited with you, laugh when you laugh, cry when you cry kind of relationships, man, that's some deep fucking connection. And well worth finding people in your life who exemplify those traits. Who is it that can sit with you, not only in your pain and sorrow? We often think of those as our relationships. Like, who can sit with you when things are going amazing and you just get a chance to talk about how amazing things have happened. And of course, tomorrow is going to be a difficult journey, or something new is always going to pop up. But in this moment right now, celebrating the things that are worth celebrating, real valuable. It's why, so I run a wedding business, or I did for a long time. And you see the best and worst in human beings sometimes in weddings. Because sometimes the wedding is going and you're like, these people love each other and are speaking words over each other of connection, of celebration, of hope for the future. And sometimes, you get to see disconnection and an inability to love across purposes. And I sure hope that my parents don't show up. And that exposes something about us as human beings. And a lot of that stuff you can't control. You probably are going to get resentful of it, perhaps. But it's just worth naming in terms of a target, just how valuable that is. So that's what I got. If you're interested in joining us, if you've gotten this far in this episode, we meet on Tuesday nights. The link is in the podcast description. So look at your MP3 player, your phone. There's going to be a link there. Click on it. It'll send you to aroundthecircle.org, where you can sign up for a membership. Join us for our discussions. We charge for the discussions because we want to create platforms. We want to be able to create platforms where people from all over the world can get together, talk about Enneagram at high levels. Memberships, again, think of it as a membership like at a health club. This is healthy for your soul, to talk about your feelings, your inner life, and do so with other people. Enneagram work is individual work, can't be done by yourself, is how the saying goes, by the great Suzanne Stabile. Join us. Jump in. These are 4:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Eastern on Tuesday, and we would love to have you. Buy the book, jump into a chapter, read it, come with something to say. That's where we're at. So I will see you tonight, hopefully. May all good things be yours.